the complete works of Sri Aurobindo. In this, we have already seen the first topic, the sole motive of man's existence. Today's is the second one, the harmony of virtue. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. In that, the harmony of virtue, in that book 1, let us see now. This is a communication or a conversation between Keshav Ganesh and Broom Wilson. Keshav, my dear Broom, how opportune is your arrival. You will save me from the malady of work. It may be from the dangerous opium of solitude. How is it I have not seen you for the last fortnight? Wilson, surely, Keshav, you can understand the exigencies of the tripos. Keshav, you are a happy man. You can do what you are told, but put off your academical aspirations until tomorrow and we will talk. The cigarettes are on the mantelpiece. Pardon my indolence. And the lucifers are probably stored on the fruit shelf. And here is coffee and a choice between cake and biscuits. Are you perfectly happy? Wilson. In Elysium. But do not let the cigarettes run dry. The aliens of a warm fire and luxurious cushions will be too strong for my vigilance. Do you mean to tell me you can work here? Keshav. Life is too precious to be wasted in labor, and above all, this especial moment of life, the hour after dinner, when we have only just enough energy to be idle. Why, it is only for this I tolerate the wearisome activity of the previous 12 hours. Wilson, you are a living paradox. Is it not? Just like you to pervert indolence into the aim of life? Keshav, why? What other aim can there be? Wilson, duty, I presume. Keshav, I cannot consent to cherish an opinion until I realize the meaning of duty. Wilson, I suppose I have pledged myself to an evening of metaphysics. We do our duty when we do what we ought to do. Keshav, a very lucid explanation. But how do we know that we are doing what we ought to do? Wilson, why, we must do what society requires of us. Keshav, and must we do that even when society requires something dissonant with our nature or repugnant to our convictions? Wilson, I conceive so. Keshav, and if society requires us to sacrifice our children or to compel a widow to burn herself, we are bound to comply? Wilson, no, we should only do what is just and good. Keshav, then the fiat of society is not valid. Duty really depends on something quite different. Wilson, it appears so. Keshav, then what is your idea of that something quite different on which duty depends? Wilson, would it be wrong to select morality? Keshav, let us inquire. But before that is possible, let me know what morality is, or I shall not know my own meaning. Wilson, morality is the conduct our ethical principles require of us. Keshav, take me with you. This ethical principle is then personal, not universal? Wilson, I think so. For different localities, different ethics. I am not a bigot to claim infallibility for my own country. Keshav. So, we must act in harmony with the code of ethics received as ideal by the society we move in. Wilson. I suppose it comes to that. Keshav. But, my dear Broom, does not that bring us back to your previous theory that we should do what society requires of us? Wilson. I am painfully afraid it does. Keshav. And we are agreed that this is not an accurate plumb line. Wilson. Yes, Keshav. You see the consequence? Wilson. I see. I must change my ground and say that we must do what our personal sense of the right and just requires of us. Keshav. For example, if my personal sense of the right and just tells me that to lie is meritorious, it is my duty to lie to the best of my ability. In Sanskrit, one saying is there, Satyam bruyat, priyam bruyat, na bruyat satyam apriyam, priyancha nandatam bruyat, esha dharma sanatanaha. Which means you have to tell the truth. Satyam bruyat, priyam bruyat. You have to tell um, what is admired by others, which they want to listen, which is very sweeter to listen. Priyam bruyat. Na bruyat satyam apriyam. If the truth is bitter, we should not tell it. So that's the one here, what they are telling here or saying. I see, I must change my ground and say that we must do what our personal sense of the right and just requires of us. For example, if my personal sense of right and just tells me that to lie is meritorious, to tell false or lie is meritorious, it is my duty to lie to the best of my ability. That is, na bruyat satyam apriyam. That is, whichever is not liked or which is bitter truth, we should not express it. Priyancha nanratam bruyat. The another point. If it is a lie, then if somebody likes it, for his like sake, we should not tell that untruth or lie for others' sake, for others' happiness. We should not lie. That's another point. Okay. Then Wilson says, but no one could possibly think that. Keshav. I think that the soul of Ithacan, Ulysses, has not yet completed the cycle of his transmigrations, nor would I wrong the author of the Hippias by ignoring his conclusions. Or, why go to dead men, for an example? The mould has not fallen on the musical lips of the Irish Plato, nor is Dorian Gray forgotten on the 100 tongues of rumour. Wilson, if our sense of right is really so prone to error, we should not rely upon it. Keshav. Then, to quote Mrs. Mountstuart, you have just succeeded in telling me nothing. Duty is not based on our personal sense of the right and just. I allow it is not. I allow it is not. Wilson says. Next, Keshav says, but surely there is some species of touchstone by which we can discern between the false and the true. Wilson. If there is, I cannot discover it. So, it is told in Smritis. as um, Satam, uh, whatever the great seers or the sages, what they practice or what they feel is right, that is right. If they are pure hearted, then they will realize, they will pursue which is right. They can pursue. That can be practiced by others also. That we have to take. Okay. But surely there is some species of touchstone by which we can discern between the false and the true. If there is, I cannot discover it, Wilson says. Then Keshav says, but do try again. There is luck in odd numbers, Wilson says. The only other touchstone I can imagine is religion, and now I come to think of it. Religion is an infallible touchstone. Keshav, I am glad you think so. For all I know, at present you are very probably right, but have you any reason for your conviction? Wilson, a code of morality built upon religion has no commerce with the demands of society or our personal sense of the right and just, but is the very law of God. Keshav says, I will not at present deny the reality of a personal God endowed with the passions and prejudices. That is not indispensable to our argument, but are there not many religions and have they not all their peculiar schemes of morality? Wilson says, no doubt, but some are more excellent than others. Keshav says, and do you cherish the opinion that your own peculiar creed, I believe it to be Christianity without Christ, is indubitably the most excellent of all religions? Wilson, by far the most excellent. Keshav says, and your own ethical scheme, again the Christian without the emotional element. The best of all ethical schemes? Wilson says, I have no doubt of it. Keshav, and there are many who dissent from you, are there not? Wilson, oh, without doubt. Keshav says, and you would impose your ethical scheme on them? Wilson, no, but I imagine it to be the goal, whether all humanity is tending. Keshav says, that is a very different question. Do you think that when a man's life is in harmony with his own creed but not with yours, he is therefore not virtuous, or, in your own phrase, deviates from his duty? Wilson, God forbid. Keshav, then you really do believe that a man does his duty when he lives in harmony with the ethical scheme patronized by his own religion, as a Mohammedan if he follows the injunctions of the Prophet, a Hindu if he obeys the Vedic scriptures, a Christian if his life is a long self denial. Wilson says, that I admit. Keshav says, then the ethical scheme of Islam is as much the very law of God as the ethical scheme of Christianity, and the morals of Hinduism are not less divine than the morals of Islam. Wilson, I hardly understand how you arrive at that conclusion. Keshav says, did you not say, Broom, that religion is an infallible test of duty because it is the very law of God? I still say so. And that everyone must adopt his own religion as the test of what he should do or not do. I cannot deny it. Then must you not either admit the reason to be invalid or that anyone's peculiar religion, to whatever species it may belong, is the very law of God? I prefer the second branch of the dilemma. But though every religion is the very law of God, nevertheless you will often find one enjoining a practice which to another is an abomination. And can God contradict himself? You mistake the point, Wilson says. Islam, Hinduism, indeed, all scriptural religions were given because the peoples professing them were not capable of receiving a higher light. Keshav says, is not God omnipotent? Wilson says, a limited God He is not God at all. Keshav says. Then was it not within his omnipotent power to so guide the world that where would be no necessity for different dealings with the different peoples? Wilson says, it was within his power, but he did not choose. Keshav says, exactly. He did not choose. He, of set purpose, preferred a method which he knew would bring him to falsehood and injustice. Wilson says, what words you use? The truth is merely that God set man to develop under certain conditions and suited his methods to those conditions. Keshav says, oh, then God is practically a scientist making an experiment, and you demand for him reverence and obedience from the creature vivisected. Then I can only see one other explanation. Having created certain conditions, he could not receive the homage of mankind without various and mutually dissentient revelations of his will. Now imagine a physician with the theosophical power who, for purposes of gain, so modified the climatic features of Judea and Arabia that the same disease required two distinct methods of treatment in the one and the other. This he does willfully and deliberately and with the foreknowledge of the result. As soon as his end is assured, our physician goes to Judea and gives the people a drug which he tells them is the sole remedy for their disease. But all others are the property of quacks and will eventually induce an increase of the malady. 5 years later, the same physician goes off to Arabia, and here he gives them another drug of an accurately opposite nature about which he imparts the same instructions. Now, if remember that the climatic conditions which necessitated the deception were the deliberate work of the deceiver, shall we not call that physician a liar and an impostor? Is God a liar or an impostor? Wilson says we must not measure the Almighty by our poor mortal standards. Kishore says, pshaw, broom, if the legislator overrides his own laws, how can you hope that others will observe them? Wilson says, but if God, in his incomprehensible wisdom and goodness, Keshav says, Keshav says, incomprehensible indeed. If there is any meaning in words, the God you have described can neither be wise nor good. Will you show me the flaw in my position? I cannot discover it. Then your suspicion is born of your disgust at the conclusion to which I have forced you. I am afraid it is. Well, shall we go on with the discussion or should I stop here? Certainly, let us go on. I need not shy at a truth, however disagreeable. Okay, next. What Keshav says, we shall continue in the next session. हरे राम सद्गुरु चरणार्पितमस्तु अरविंदार्पितमस्तु ओम तत्सत् सर्वे जनाः सुखिनो भवन्तु लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु सज्जनाः सन्तु निर्भयाः ओम तत्सत्